Hey guys, and welcome back to And Now for something a little bit different, episode 52, guys. And today I am in, you guys are in for quite the treat because we are covering two time travel films. I'm covering the 2023 film Aporia. It's a little independent film. And I'm also going to be talking about the 1962 short film La Jetée. And what makes this even better, guys, is I'm honored to have a very special guest with me today. I have none other than Dave Gray from Raiders of the Podcast. Dave Gray, welcome. It's good to
Hi.
have you.
It's good. It's good to be here. It's good to be anywhere, actually. I usually just hibernate this time of year.
Well, you're on the East Coast like me, so it's freaking cold as hell out there. I don't blame you, man. I hate going outside. The older I get, the more I realize I've become the angry, grumpy old man that hates the cold weather. Now I know why they migrate down south in the winter.
Right? I never understood that, but going to Florida is just too much for me.
Yeah, I don't know about Florida per se, but I have osteoarthritis, man. It's early arthritis, and I'll tell you, man, I feel that cold, man. It fucking blows. But anyway, I'm derailing already. Usually I take a few minutes before I derail. Welcome to the podcast or YouTube channel here. And tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're into. If you want to promote, of course, Raiders of the Podcast. Feel
Well,
free.
I'm Dave Gray. I'm the chief cat wrangler at Raiders of the Podcast, which, God, we're going on 7 years. Today we just put up episode 390.
Wow.
Which, if you know the other guys on it, that is an accomplishment because it is. I can't cattle prod them because they live far from me, but that's why they live far from me, to avoid death threats and being forced to do things. Let's see. I'm into, well, whatever you've got. I just nerd out on everything. I can't help it.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, I mean, 390 episodes, and let me just throw a bad joke out here. How many of those were Tyler torturing you with the soft porn trauma videos? Was it like 150, 175? And I love you, Tyler. So if you're listening to this by any chance, I'm busting your chops here because I had a blast when you guys had me on your show.
I've done the math. I've watched 200 Tyler movies because of how just things have worked out. Yeah.
Well, God bless your soul.
I keep waiting for him to run out.
What's that?
Keep waiting for him to run out, but he doesn't.
It's got to be like at a certain point, like the cops that investigate like homicide, like at a certain point, I guess you must at a certain point be able to just kind of like phase it out and just be like, all right, on to the next one.
Kind of. Well, I realize we're all on a watch list now because of Tyler movies. So, I accept it. That's fine.
You're in a small town. There's something shady's going on. The first thing they do is knock on your door.
Sometimes I see patrol cars go slowly past my house. Yeah, I made this bet. I'll lie in it. That's fine.
No, listen, I love your show, and honestly, I love the band. Half the thing that's great about the show, I would say probably more than half is the banter between you guys. The banter between you guys is really great, and the busting each other's balls is awesome. It really makes the experience already wonderful. Just hearing about films that I've probably never heard of before, but then you guys constantly are just ripping on each other, and it's great. It's a fun experience.
That means a lot. You should see our Facebook chat PM because it's endless.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Well, I guess next, before we get into the actual films, I'll just ask what you've had the opportunity to. I don't know. It could be anything you've watched, read. If there's a good game you're playing, I don't know if there's anything that you have been up to, or if not, no big deal, of course.
Well, I saved this for you. I watched Smile 2 this week.
Okay.
Could have talked about it on Raiders, but I didn't want to because Tyler would have made me sad. It hurt.
Yeah.
It hurt me so much. Okay. The lead actress does a great job. She gives a great performance, but there's nothing else good. It's a bad script. It's bad effects. It's not scary. And there's 32 water product placements for Voss Water. Voss Water appears more than any other character. And I just don't find horror in bottled water in corporates. I mean, okay, corporations are horrible, but I'm not scared of them so much as I want to burn their buildings down. So it didn't speak to me, but I'm sure it works for someone. Just it's a pass.
Well, the question I would have to ask is, on a small independent film, I could see the understanding of, getting some product placement because, you want to make up the budget somewhere if you're privately funding a film like an indie film. But like in a big studio film, it's like, why do you need to? I'm sure the budget, I don't know what the budget off, but I'm guessing it's got to probably be, even for a horror film like that, because the first one was fairly successful, it's probably at least a $50-60 million horror film. Why do you need the product placement? That's the question I would ask. You know what I mean?
Well, Tyler was telling me that they sent out promotional boxes that had Voss water in it. It's like there is a line. I saw Madam Web just recently, and now I thought that had bad product placement where they literally kill the villain with Pepsi. Like I thought that's too far, but then I saw this and it's like, oh no, that's just the beginning. It gets so much worse. I just don't get how you can make a movie and be like, yeah, I don't need characters. I need more bottles of Voss water. Like, this is a writer. How can you not have enough respect for yourself to not, want to write a character? But instead,
that's crazy. There you go. And product, you gotta hold the can up closer, and maybe you guys will get a deal with. There you go. Maybe you'll get a deal with Raiders. This product was brought to you by.
That's the movie. That was the whole movie to me.
Was one. I didn't get a chance to catch that one. I did catch when I had Paramount Plus for a brief period of time, and then I got rid of it because I didn't think it was worth it. But I did see the first one, and I didn't think it was mind blowing, but I thought it was entertaining enough. Well, but I didn't see the second one, so I don't really have any thoughts on it.
I'm kind of stuck with Paramount Plus because I'm a bit of a Trek geek.
Oh yeah. So there you go.
I mean, this was right. This was at hand. I only had to lean 3 inches. Like I could lean anywhere and pull out a new geeky Trek thing or a Scooby Doo thing. So I'm kind of stuck with it. I don't have a choice because they won't release the new stuff on disc.
Well, listen, that's where I mean, I'll derail for a few minutes and then I'll go back on. I promise that I'll get back in gear here. But I'm sure you've noticed it. We've all noticed it. They sucker you in because they either have something that you love on one specific streaming service, or they have some amazing exclusive content that's just made for that one specific streaming services. So before you know it, no matter how careful you are, you're sucked into 5 different streaming services. And then within the last year or two, you can really go on a rant. If you don't want to pay a small fortune, you have to deal with commercials. So I just got suckered into the HBO Max. They did a Black Friday 6 months for $3 a month, which is a great deal. But of course, if I wanted to deal with no commercials, I think an extra $5. You know what I
mean? Paramount's not so bad because they will release stuff on disc eventually. It just takes a while. Disney's
a while to come.
The worst though. Like they've had some of their best stuff. It's not the Star Wars Marvel stuff. Like the Benedict Society. There's 2 seasons of it. It's fantastic. The second season was up for a month before they pulled it, just so they wouldn't have to pay the actors royalties because they decided, fuck it. I don't get.
Wow.
I don't get the thinking, and it'll never see disc. I might have bootlegged it, but I'm not going to say if I did or not.
He's like, I may have done that. I may have not done that.
But you'll never prove it. So.
Well, listen. If they're not going to release it and you've already watched it on the streaming service, at a certain point, like you said, you're afraid that they're going to pull it off the streaming service. So they force you into not supporting them and supporting physical media by possibly resorting to buying it illegally. And I've done that many a time. So, and I may have done that many a time.
It could have happened.
It possibly, yes, exactly. There's no shame in that. So is that all you got for me? Or do you want to talk about the book when we get to Leggetti?
Oh, I want to talk about the book when we get to that.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I know you have a lot going on with Raiders too, because you guys got 2 films and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got time now. Like if this was Thursday, I'd be in a panic mode. Like if I wasn't on top of it, I'd be freaking out. No, besides that, I've been gaming a little.
No.
I just downloaded Infinite Nikki, Infinity Nikki, whatever, the newest
Okay.
Nikki game to play with my niece.
Okay.
Which, if you haven't played those, they're Chinese gacha series.
Oh,
Gacha.
oh,
They're
interesting.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like visually, they're gorgeous, but they're all about dressing up in fashion in a fantasy world. So
Is this like a Steam kind of thing, or is this like on the consoles?
this is on PlayStation. I think it's on Steam, and you can play it
Oh,
on your
okay.
phone too. I mean, you
Oh,
can play
okay.
it mobile. So I've been playing like a lot of that with a small child.
Oh, nice.
That's about it for me.
Ooh. Any excuse to play a good video game, to get addicted to a good video game? That part of the reason why I don't always get my podcast out on time is because of these freaking video games. I get sucked into like a 75-hour RPG, and it's like, guys, there's going to be a delay. I'm not going to have an episode this week, but I'll promise I'll have one to you by next Wednesday. You know?
Well, because I want to pretend I'm impressive. I've started watching Twitch streamers that play this
Mm,
game and
mm,
taking notes of where things are hidden. So, like,
mm,
when she's playing, I can be like, "Oh, what's that over there?"
mm.
I got eyes.
Well, you got to stay on you got to impress the niece. You got to see the
That's
thing
right.
is I have three nieces and a nephew, and you got to make sure you're hip with the kids. You got to be able to relate. So you
That's
got to stay
exactly
on
it.
top of this stuff. I do the Christmas shopping list, and I ask my one sister who has two little ones, and I'm like, "What are they into? Is it Pokemon? Oh, no, they're not doing Pokemon anymore. Now it's Sonic. So trying to stay in touch with what the new thing is.
Yeah. Well, it's hard for me because I do all my Christmas shopping in January, and then I
Oh,
gaslight
okay.
people into not buying things for 12 months.
Oh, okay. That dude, you're on top of things doing it in January.
Yeah,
That's a smart way to do it.
I know.
I'm
Well,
one.
it's real
I'm an
cheap.
idiot. I scramble at the last minute, and then I wonder why I'm in debt or I'm broke. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I used to do that too, but mental abuse is just so much easier.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm definitely very curious, despite the negativity in the product placement. I still want to torture myself a little bit, so I probably will get around to Smile too. And I'm going to tell my girl about that game you're talking about because I think
Mhm.
it's something she might be into.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it's free to play. Just don't go overboard on the gacha stuff, and you should be fine.
Nice, very cool. I also didn't get a ton in. Like I watched some stuff that I might cover. Like I watched Blue Collar by Paul Schrader, but I'm not going to talk about that because I'm going to actually talk about that next month. But then I followed it up with Hardcore, another Paul Schrader film that I've never seen before. And of course, got Paul Schrader directing it. You have George C. Scott, Peter Boyle, Lot Davis. And it's this guy in a small town. He's very religious. His youngest daughter goes on some sort of trip with her church, and she just disappears off the face of the earth. And excuse me, I got getting over this cold. Basically, after a certain period of time of her missing, he's fed up. He hires a private investigator played by Peter Boyle, and after a couple of weeks, Peter Boyle realizes that she's been doing porn, unfortunately, and he can't find out specifically like which company or he's having a hard time tracking down specific information. So at this point, George C. Scott character basically does his own investigation, and he goes through this whole process, excuse me, of tracking his daughter down. And it's I don't want to give too much away. It's a really rough movie, but I think it's a good movie. It's a dark movie, but wow, Paul Schrader, you got to give the guy credit. There's a reason why he has the reputation he does as a writer and a filmmaker. Now, on a personal note, after he said that shit earlier this year when Roger Corman died, like the day after he died, I was, fuck you, Paul Schrader, and fuck your career, because I didn't like what he had to say. But, you got to separate the person from the artist. Um, the film is really good. It's definitely one I hadn't seen before, and it's one I'd highly recommend. Have you seen a lot of the Schrader's
I've seen all of
filmography?
Schrader's stuff. I am not as
Oh,
kind
okay.
on his work as you are, but I've seen
Yeah.
all of Schrader's stuff.
Okay.
Uh, so I was going to ask you about one. I brain farted on the title, so I had to
No, no, of
pull up
course.
my tablet because you mentioned having Max. Have you seen his um, Magic Noir film?
Magic noir film. Is that a newer one?
No, it is early 80s. It's a TV movie he made for HBO. It is called, that's why I had to open up my tablet. See if I can find it listed here. Of course I can't find it. Hold on.
That's okay. You can even, it's no big deal at all. I just got it on Black Friday, so I've been kind of delving into some of the DC animated stuff and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but I haven't really fully explored Max yet.
Cast a Deadly Spell, and it has a
Cast the
sequel
Deadly.
called Witch Hunt,
Okay.
where they are noir films in a magic setting. The first
Okay.
one has I can't remember.
Dude, I brain fart all the time, so don't worry
From
about it.
Trimmers, Fred Ward.
Oh, Fred Ward. Okay.
Second
Great.
one, Ward is replaced with Dennis Hopper.
Oh, okay.
I think they're both on Max.
I
Since you
will
mentioned
definitely look
having
for it.
Max.
I'll put it on my watch list. The endless watch list, as I like to call it. I don't know what's worse, the endless watch list of movies or the endless like pile of books that I haven't read that I've gotten 3 years ago. It's like they're competing for which one is worse.
Yeah, and the shelf of games. Yeah, no, I he looks longingly over at it. Yeah, no, I get it. I get
Yeah.
it.
But listen, I will say, the stuff I have seen by him, as much as I hate to say it, he is good. Most of it, not all of it, but most of it I've enjoyed. So I had a good time with it.
I
Like I
just
said,
think,
it's definitely not a feel good movie, but it's not trying to be.
like, okay, hardcore I really like, blue collar I really like. His films fall into two categories. There's the different stuff,
Yeah,
cast a spell,
yeah,
hardcore, blue collar. But then there's like half his stuff are pointless generic white man saving the day with his addiction slash what the fuck ever. Uh,
yeah,
American Gigolo.
yeah,
It's Taxi Driver Redux, and he just keeps redoing it, redoing it to diminishing returns. A lot of folks love First Reformed. I hated First Reformed.
didn't do anything with it.
No, I hated the card counter even more, or the card
Mm,
player even more.
yeah,
Like it's just Light Sleeper. They're all the exact same movie, where a white guy who doesn't do anything well saves the day in the end to revenge some woman. It's just sexist, tedious nonsense to me.
yeah,
A lot of folks enjoy them, and that's cool. But I think Schrader's head is bigger than his actual talent.
yeah. I mean, there's so much that I haven't seen, and there's so much I have seen. Yeah, there's definitely some ego there. Like I said, to circle back to the comment, that pissed me off. Like what he said some really disparaging things about Corman, and you can say a lot of things about Corman, but Corman did a lot for a lot of people, and he helped encourage a lot. He gave people a lot of opportunities. I talked about this on Caliber 9 when I was with those guys, but I'll repeat this briefly. He helped a lot of women early on, like get serious roles, not just casting, like acting, but like director of photography, like editing, stuff like that, when that just wasn't happening. So, like, when he said those remarks, I was like, fuck this guy. It
Yeah.
really stung me a little bit. So, but like I said, there is some talent there, and there is some films like you said where it's just kind of like, what are you doing? Why repeat the same thing over and over again? Why not try something new? If you have the if you possess talent, if you're not talented at all, that's one thing. But if you possess talent, why not try something different? Why not try a different type of story, a different type of film? I don't know.
It happens a lot. It happens with a lot of people because it's
Yeah, a
what
lot
they
of
see
filmmakers.
work, so they just keep refining the formula, and that's how things become trope. But
Yeah,
I don't know. I kind
yeah.
of his whole
Hit and
generation
miss.
of Hollywood. I'm just kind of on
You
these
kind of,
days.
yeah. Well, from then I went on to, and I had heard about this on the Not Bob podcast. They had a guest on, the guy that directed an animated killer robot movie that they just had on. I can't remember the guy's name, so I apologize in advance. And he mentioned a movie called Robot Dreams that came out in 2023, and it's a Spanish film. It only has one actor, a guy named Ivan Labanda, and it's a silent film primarily. They do have music scenes, music numbers, but no one actually talks. And it's basically this really lovely story about a dog who's very lonely and is living a very mundane life. And he orders this robot, and this robot becomes his best friend. And they go on all these different adventures, and there are some misadventures. And it was just really touching, really sweet, kind of sad at moments. But overall, just a good movie. And when I looked up the filmmaker, his name is Pablo Berger. He made a movie that came out in 2012 called Blancanieves, which is like a modern retelling of Snow White. But the Snow White character is a bullfighter. And I actually saw this up in New York City. And I tell you what, it's an awesome movie. Really, really good film. It's black and white. And then he's done a couple other things, like a film called Abracadabra that came out in 2017, which I haven't seen. Um, if you like animated films, definitely check it out. I know you're an anime. Have you seen this one?
I have. I had to drive. Well, like I was saying before we started recording, if I want to see something interesting, I got to drive an hour. So I
Yeah.
drove for this one.
Oh,
I
okay.
saw it in. I didn't go to DC. I went to Winchester to see it. I
Mm-hmm.
really liked it. I've seen not the bullfighter one, but
But the
one
Abracadabra.
was others. Abracadabra and Tormelino 73, I think
Okay,
is
that
the
one I
title.
forgot to write that down.
Yeah,
Um,
I enjoyed both of those also.
okay.
They weren't as good as the animated one, but they were both really
Yeah.
worth checking out.
Oh, very cool. Oh, in the movie, the guy that still can't think of the guy's, the guest was I'm Not a Bomb, but the name of the filmmaker, he made an animated movie called Infinite Santa. That was the name of the movie. It's like an low budget indie, crazy sci-fi Santa movie. That was, I still can't think of the name of the guest, but he's the guy that was on Not a Bomb, and he recommended um, this movie, Robot Dreams. So yeah, I did that, and then I had this memory, and I've been trying to figure out what the movie was for a while. This movie that came out in the 80s, and I saw it as a kid, and I barely remembered it, but of course, good old Google. And it's a movie called How to Beat the High Cost of Living. This came out in 1980, and we have Susan St. James, Jane Curtin, Jessica Lange, good old Dabney Coleman shows up, and we circle back. You talked about Fred Willard. Fred Willard's in it. Um, and this movie's basically a story about three desperate housewives that are just struggling to get by. You know, like, hey, the economy's in the shitter right now. For most of us, we're barely getting by. And these women are just in this tough situation where they're all going through different personal crises, and they're having a hard time paying the bills and just getting through everyday life stuff. So they find out about a local lottery that's going to be drawn at their local mall this upcoming Saturday. And it's going to be shot out into this big plastic bubble. And they figure out this scheme basically to rob the lottery. And it's a really fun heist movie of sorts. And everybody's really good in it. It's not a perfect movie, but it was nice going back to a movie that I hadn't seen in like a million years, and just a fun time. You know, nothing too serious, but I enjoyed it. So, and that kind of finishes up what I've watched the week. Like yourself, there were certain things like you had to do stuff for the Raiders. There's a couple films I'm going to be talking about next month, so I didn't want to talk about that I've seen. But that wraps that up. I guess now I'll get a little bit into some of the behind the scenes stuff for the film Aporia. That's our feature film. Um, that was directed by a guy named, excuse me, this cough, Jared Mosh. He hasn't done a lot of stuff. Looks like mostly indie stuff. He did a movie in 2012 called Dead Man Burden. Then in 2017, he did a movie called The Ballad of Lefty Brown. And then he did Aporia in 2023. So that's our director slash writer.
Well, you mentioned but he's also been a producer. You mentioned
Oh,
Carmen. This is what I'm thinking of it. He directed a 2011,
oh, and this
2012
was it a
documentary
short
called
film?
Corman's World about Roger
Oh,
Corman's
okay.
films. Or he
All right.
produced, didn't direct, he produced it.
Okay.
He's produced some stuff.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that's actually a good documentary too. I really like that. I actually own that one. Um, so yeah, those are the main like three directing stuff. And then when we get into cinematography, we have a guy named Nicholas Bupp. Probably pronouncing your name, Nicholas, your last name wrong, so I apologize in advance. Uh, he's done a ton of short films, so I didn't write them all down. He did a feature film in 2021 called The Falconer. And he actually did a music video for a band called 21 Pilots. So that gives you a little bit. Again, most of his career seems to be short films predominantly. So I didn't write down. I was a little bit lazy. I didn't write down his every short film that he's done because there's just a shit ton of them. We have our composer, This is a guy named H. Scott Salinas. Now this guy's done a bunch of interesting stuff. He worked with our director on The Ballad of Lefty Brown. He worked on Tales of the Grim Sleeper, which came out in 2014. He did a film called Birth of the Dragon in 2016. And he recently did a movie with Anthony Mackie that just came out this year called Elevation. It also has, I think, Marina Baccarin in it. I haven't seen that one, but the trailer looks decent. So that's our cinematographer. With our editor, we have a guy named Marshall Granger. He's done Aporia. He did a movie in 2024 earlier called Ugly Sweater. And he did a movie in 2021 called We Burn Like This. So that's some of our behind the scenes people. I'm just going to touch bases really quickly on our actresses and actors. We have Judy Greer, who's one of our main roles. She's playing the role of Sophie Rice. She's been in a ton of stuff. She's a character actor mostly, but she also shows up as a lead actor. Most people probably know her in like recent stuff like the 2016 Halloween movie. She was in Arrested Development, stuff like Elizabethtown, and yeah, I know the new Halloween movie. I'm right there with you.
No, I was thinking about Arrested Development.
Yeah.
I love her in Arrested Development.
I love Arrested Development. I haven't seen the later stuff they did, but the original stuff I love. But she's one of those people that she's been all over the place. She's been in stuff like in '99 she did Jawbreaker, M. Night Shyamalan's The Village in 2004, Elizabethtown in 2005. One of my favorite TV series that got canceled like before it was even started practically. She was in a TV show called Love Monkey that came out in 2005, which I love. And then recently, I think the newest thing she did was The Best Christmas Pageant, which recently came out. I haven't seen it. It actually looks kind of cute for like a feel-good movie.
I read the book, but I haven't seen the new one.
Yeah, but yeah. So and she's one of those names I think a lot of people know. So I didn't go into everything. Next is her playing the role of her husband is the actor Ed Gathegi. Hopefully, I got your name right, Ed. I apologize if I didn't. He's playing her husband, Malcolm Rice. He's, believe it or not, I had never seen him in anything before that I had recognized immediately, but apparently he's going to be in the new Superman film. He's playing Mr. Terrific. And then he's done stuff like the first Crank movie, Gone Baby Gone, Twilight, X-Men First Class, My Bloody Valentine, the remake, and that show, The Blacklist. So surprisingly, he's done a lot more than I recognized him from. So we have their daughter, the actress Faith Herman. She's been in stuff like the two Shazam movies that came out. She's been in an episode of Criminal Minds, and she was in that 2019 adaptation of Watchmen, not the TV show.
Series.
Yeah, I heard it was really good. I've been wanting to watch that one for a while. So she showed up in that. Playing their next door neighbor, we have an actor named Payman Mahdi. He's playing a character named Sabine Karib. He's their next door neighbor. Like I said, he's been in stuff like Six Underground in 2019, Westworld. The film is Separation, which sounds really familiar. I think I've seen that one. And then a film called Night Shift. So looks like he's paved himself a little career. A lot of stuff, a lot of foreign films, and then a couple stuff that made its way this way.
His A Separation is an Iranian film. I think it's 2011. It is. Okay. If you can find it, it's worth checking out. But
no, it is. Okay. So because I knew the name sounded familiar, and I was trying to think if I had seen it before, because I'm pretty sure I had seen a film called A Separation. I just wasn't sure.
Yeah. There was a U.S. film not too long ago with this similar. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're different movies.
I just got 3 more actors that are supporting characters, and then we'll get on to talking about the film itself. We have an actress named Whitney Morgan. She's playing the role of Cara Brinkley, which we'll explain a little bit as I get into the story a little bit. She obviously was in Aporia. She was in the TV show Animal Kingdom, which was actually a pretty good show, or at least I liked a lot. Another one that did Criminal Minds, and she's another one that's done a shit ton of short films. Playing her husband is an actor named Adam O'Byrne. Adam O'Byrne is playing the role of Darby Brinkley, her husband, like I said. He was also in the Ballad of Lefty Brown with our director here. He was on the TV show Botch, and also the TV show Grimm. So that's a little bit about him. Playing their daughter, Aggie, is the actress Evita Cienfuegos. She's been in stuff like the TV show Circuit Breakers, Undone, and I think that's what I have down for her. Yeah. So yeah, that's a little bit about our behind the scenes people and our people in front of the camera. Now the story, it is a time travel, so of course there's a lot of little twists and turns for better or worse. And effectively, we start the film out and we're introduced to Judy Greer's character, Sophie Rice, and her husband Malcolm Rice. They're having this touching moment, and basically it goes from there to we flash forward to 8 months later, and we find out that her husband has died, and he basically was run over by a drunken driver. She has a daughter named Riley. Their life has kind of gone downhill. The daughter's, failing out of school, constantly kind of getting into trouble. She's going through all the symptoms I think that like most kids would go through at a young age if they lost a parental figure. Things are not going well. Through one of these interactions, she has her neighbor who we meet. His name is Khabib, and basically he picks the daughter up from school. They have a nice little conversation. He's like, "Hey, I'm there for you. He was my best friend, and you guys were always always very welcoming to me. I can make words, I promise." He tells her a story about how his family was gunned down in his country. I think he's from India. And he kind of shares this story, and he moved here to start a new life, and basically how he's always appreciated her friendship and her husband's friendship, and that he's there for her. After a couple of conversations, he tells her reluctantly about this experiment that he started a couple of years ago with her husband. And basically, what it is it's a time. I wouldn't call it a time travel machine per se, but I'll effectively call it a time travel gun. And they have, I know you're laughing, and understandably so. Understandably so. Trust me, I get it. Basically, the idea in theory, because he hasn't finished it yet, is he's working on the finishing touches. The idea is that he can pick a point in time, not too far back, but a point in time, and basically he can shoot someone. And basically, the long drawn out explanation, it basically does something to their particles, and they basically, I think, explode or something like that, and they disappear effectively. She doesn't believe him. She thinks like this is crazy talk, even though she sees the machine at first. She's kind of very like, yeah, what are you doing? Why are you telling me this kind of thing? But eventually she's desperate. And she's like, do you really think this is something that'll work? He's like, yeah, I pretty much got the machine down to where I think it'll work. Have I ever used it before? No. So she basically and him, they eventually agree to use the machine. At first, they're kind of surprised because nothing happens. But then a few minutes later, lo and behold, she gets a phone call. And who is it? It's her husband. He's back from the dead. From there, we get into this whole scenario basically where she's happy to have him back. The husband notices that something seems to be off about her, and he basically confronts her about it. He's like, you're not your normal self. You're like, it's good, you're positive, you're doing all these things that you normally wouldn't do. He kind of like asks her like, what's going on? And basically she breaks down. She explains what she and their neighbor Khabib did, and from there they basically get to this whole scenario where they debate whether they should use the machine again, because at this point, like, they could have their very happily ever after. There's been some effects of using this time machine gun, basically. Like, she's not a lot of big changes. Like, she was working as a nurse. She was working in a different department in the hospital. Now she's in a different department. So she's not doing the same exact department in the hospital that she was before. But there haven't been a lot of huge, significant changes. So they're debating that they're having this big philosophical debate on whether they should use the machine or not. Their neighbor Khabib thinks that they should use it because they can really make huge changes in people's lives, people that are just like horrible human beings, and they could do something for the positive. But they're afraid because, you know, if you've ever seen a time travel movie or read a time travel book, you know, there's always an effect for every action, there's a reaction, you know. And effectively, from there, the neighbor goes rogue, and he stops a terrorist, I think it was, that gunned down a bunch of people, but without confronting his neighbors and talking about it. And of course, they're upset about it. But once they've already unraveled that ball, they get over being upset about it, and they're like, "Well, what should we do next?" And from there, they start to learn about the guy that ran Malcolm over, the drunk driver. She's Sophie, the wife, she's very curious about what happened to his family. And she goes to investigate what happened to the family. And she realizes that his wife, the guy that ran over, Darby's wife, has a kid. They're kind of like on Skid's Row. They're barely getting by. She's working 2 jobs. She's a waitress. So she basically goes to the restaurant. She introduces herself. She says, "Hey, how you doing? I used to be friends with Darby. We went to high school together, you know." And she kind of like befriends them, invites them over for dinner, and she basically discovers that their daughter has multiple sclerosis. And basically, she finds out where her life went downhill. And where her life went downhill is she got conned by. She used to own a successful bakery, but she got conned by this con artist. Um, so she wants to help this family. She feels bad. So she decides to basically use the machine. Here we are, the third time we're using the machine. She basically kills the con man. Now, again, this is where the moral high ground gets a little bit sketchy because the guy basically conned her out of his business that she used to own, but he's not a mass murderer. He's not a terrorist. He's a shady character and maybe a shitty person, but a con man, I don't know. But anyway, basically, third time using the gun. Now things really start to affect things on a bigger scale. Now this family has their happily ever after. The con man's out of the picture. They basically are running a successful business. She's able to afford to pay for the medical treatments for the daughter with multiple sclerosis. And they think things are great. They go home, Malcolm and Sophie, and they realize their daughter, Faith Herman, is no longer a girl, but surprise, she did something that changed, and now they have a little boy. And the little boy, they're of course in shock by, like anyone would be. They have no memories of growing up with this boy because they changed things, you know? So ultimately they make the decision, what should they do? There's this big debate. Khabib's involved. They're like, we fucked everything up. We can't take back what we did. What do we do? What do we do? They talk to their neighbor Khabib. Khabib thinks the answer is, well, you know, my parents were gunned down in India many, many years ago, and that's what provoked me to come up with the idea for this time machine gun. Why don't we just say fuck it, and we'll just go back in time and stop that guy from killing my parents and my family. Then I'll never come to America, invent the time machine or time gun, whatever you want to call it, and we'll see. We'll just play Russian roulette and see what happens. Of course, the movie ends with basically Sophie Rice walking home from work after the timeline's been changed. She opens the door, and there's a big mystery of what actually happened. And as the audience members, we're left to kind of decide on our own or come up with whatever version we think happened. Did they effectively change things? Did they make things worse? Is her daughter no longer around and her husband no longer around? Like, is she a single lady? We don't know. I know that was a very long, drawn-out summary, guys, but in my defense, Your Honor, in my defense, this movie has a lot going on. And I know I stumbled a little bit, plot summary is not my strong point. So I apologize in advance to all my listeners, and I apologize to you, Dave, for having to listen to that.
Good.
There's lots of
It's
lots of
way
spoilers.
better than I would have. I would have made jokes the whole time through. I mean,
No,
you
and I
got
like
through
jokes.
it.
Now that I've told this story, and it is a flawed film, we can all agree on that. I know you. I'm curious to hear more of your thoughts. But yet, despite the fact that personally I think it's a flawed film, I do think there's something there that, to me, was worth watching. I think there is some substance there. I think there's some good ideas that went terribly array. But I like the general concept. And I like all the people involved behind the scenes and in front of the camera. But I've gone on talking way too long. I'm being rude. You're my guest. Dave,
Oh, sure.
let me hear your thoughts. Unload on me, just like
Okay.
that gun.
So I'm going to start with the question. Have you seen the movie Foe? It came out last year. It's
I have not. It's got
it's
a cool
another
title.
it's another small sci-fi movie. It stars Saoirse Ronan as.
Ooh, I love Cerise. She's awesome. She's
And
awesome.
she gives an amazing performance. And the guy that plays her husband, I should have looked it up while you were talking so I could sound smarter than
No,
I
because I
am.
was talking long enough, for Christ's sake.
I know. I had tons of time. I'm
like
sorry.
a fucking country mile. You could have watched the movie again by the time I finished that fucking summary.
So she and the guy that plays her husband give brilliant performances. And it's beautifully shot. But the screenplay is one of the dumbest fucking things I've ever heard anyone say. It is misery porn that forgets about the sci-fi and everything, and it is just trauma dumping pain. And nobody should watch it unless you study acting. You're like, I want to know what it's like to just be really depressed in a farmhouse. Then you should watch the movie. This is a lot like that.
Yeah.
Where I like the cast. I love me some Judy Greer. I have a small statue of her that I carved with my tears over not, being able to breathe the same air as her. It's in my basement. So, I love Judy Greer. She's fantastic. And unlike you, I am familiar with Edie. I cannot pronounce his last name.
Yeah. Well, I'm not the only one. So I don't feel bad.
Yeah. Edie Gattingi, I think. I'm sorry. Because he's excellent. He was on For All Mankind on Apple, which if you want some good sci-fi, go watch For All Mankind. It is excellent. But they give two really strong performances. The problem again, and the guy that plays their neighbor is good too. And the problem with this is that the script is just really fucking dumb. It's not as dumb as Foe, but it makes eyes at having ideas and concepts and dealing with the morality, but then it never does. The morality basically comes down to don't piss off Judy Greer or you die. And anything else is unacceptable. Did you kill a serial killer? No, don't hurt the serial killer. But you annoyed Judy Greer, so now you have to die. So the morality is a little sketchy. The science is ridiculous. Now, I mean, it's time travel, so you got to kind of let it go. But they act like there's no physicists in the U.S. There are hundreds of thousands of physicists in the U.S. The government alone employs like 20,000 physicists. My niece's dad was a nuclear physicist. He worked in a building with 1,000 other physicists. I mean, there's fucking physicists. It's not like Kismet because you happen to meet another physicist in California. There's thousands of them. So, that's where we start. I drive a taxi because I couldn't get a job as a physicist. Fuck you. You're a shitty physicist. I don't believe you can build this gun. But I'll put it aside. Everything they do, like the cause and effect never makes sense. Like, I agree. I think there's some good ideas. And I think you could have made something really good with this. But the director didn't think it out, which is always a problem with sci-fi. You can kind of half-ass it with horror or drama or crime.
Yeah.
You just be like, as long as we get to the end, it's fine. How do you get there? They kill somebody. Fuck yeah. But sci-fi, especially something like this, it's a kitchen sink sci-fi. You need to think it out. You need to know where you're going. Step A, step B, step C, step C2. You need to. You have to know every step. And they didn't know every step. And they just covered that with, science. And science isn't magic. Science is science. So, even if you're observing it, you've changed the whole timeline. You've changed your whole past. You're not suddenly in a magic bubble. So they didn't think that out. They didn't talk about like their whole thing. The Earth is moving. We're always moving. How do you figure out where somebody's standing? And all you needed was just a couple lines. Like, this is the formula for the speed of the Earth. So this is how we can find where someone is in space. And that would have just gone a long way for me. Because it's so busy trying to convince you that it's smart while being stupid. And that's where it falls apart.
Yeah.
I'm good with junk science. I love junk science. Give me I showed you my Enterprise lamp, which is currently glowing right in front of John and just giving a lovely light. I am fine with technobabble. You want to give me the most bullshit excuse you can think of? I am there. But you've got to think of it. You've got to give me a reason. And this never does. The only reason is Judy Greer morality, which, I mean, it's not Judy's morality. It's for character. But like at the end of the day, it's just, well, what causes A, B, C, or D? And that's where it falls apart for me. You need to have all the steps laid out. You need to know how you're going to get where you're going in order to have these conversations, and they don't. Like, it works better. Like Terminator, they just drop it down. Why? Because he's in the past now. Fuck you. Okay, he's in the past now. Fuck me. But that doesn't do this. This keeps pretending that it's talking about loftier things without ever getting there.
Yeah.
And that's a pet peeve of mine. I love kitchen sink sci-fi. I really do. Give me a small story about like a guy building a time machine in his garage, and I am happy. But don't try to tell me that you're making some moral examination when you don't even have a view on the morality you're talking about. They don't ever really discuss anything. It's just, let's do this. Nuh-uh, we can't do that. Why not? Because I said so. It reminded, and I'm going to reference another movie that I don't think is great, but it's an interesting idea. Did you ever see The Man from Earth? It's like 20 years old. William Catt. He's the oldest man on Earth. He's like 1 billion years old.
No, I have not. And I like William Catt, so I'm surprised I haven't seen that.
Filled with solid genre actors.
Okay.
And it's not great. It's really not. It's got a lot of the same issues. The idea is good, but they don't think it out. But and it makes me think of that because it's the same thing. Instead of having the morality that you're supposed to be discussing, this is a morality play. It is based around the moral. So if they don't have their morality down, how can you tell this story? True. And this the Man from Earth and Foe have the same issue where they're doing a morality play, but they don't have their morality fixed. I think in order to tell this story, like Primer does it better, or Safety Not Guaranteed.
I love that movie.
Right, but it's a good one because it knows what it's going to say. It knows what it has to say about these characters. It knows what it has to say about the story, and this doesn't. And that ultimately is what makes this one I would not recommend, personally speaking, because there's good pieces. But it's like when I put together my niece's first swing set, I just nailed it together, and it looked like a monstrosity, and it killed a neighbor's kid who got too close to it. So, you need to think these things out. You can't just screw it together.
That kid anyway, so
no, he was an asshole.
Fine. And you hit the body properly. You got rid of all the DNA stains. You're good.
There's some bleach. Billy's mom doesn't need to know. She doesn't look at YouTube, I hope. Screw YouTube, Carol. Billy deserves
hey, hold on. That's my audience. I can't screw it.
Sorry, Carol.
No. No, trust me. Listen, like yourself, my better half, she was watching it with me, and she's like, at a certain point, she's like, she didn't hate it, but I'm definitely more enthusiastic about it than the three of us. And she was like, why? She brought the husband back. Why is she going any further? Just fucking shut down the machine. Only bad things can happen by using this machine. You know what I mean? I mean, there are points like when they stopped, when the Jahib goes rogue and he decides to stop the terrorists from killing all those people. And, like, we don't explore that, like the effects of that. There are little things that would have been interesting, even if they touched on it for a few minutes, to just be like, you just stopped several people from dying.
17
What?
people,
Yeah.
and
So what's
nothing changes.
like? I mean, if you think that the main two characters, their daughter becomes a boy at the end, that happened by saving one family, then what's going to happen to those 17 people? Because if we follow that every action has a reaction, to go back to that, then what? How are their lives? Those 17, of the 17, at least 16 of them must have had something, that echoed that, like. So yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's definitely flawed. Like I said, for some reason, there's a lot of shitty films that I'm a little more forgiving, but that's a character flaw in me. But then there are other films, like I'm like, fuck this movie, and everybody else is blowing this, they're in love with the movie, so it's
Oh, I
weird,
know that feeling.
so it's weird how, and like I said, I thought it, I thought the idea was there. I thought the execution, like yourself, how left a lot to be desired, unfortunately. But at least the idea was something better than the norm, because I don't know how many films I've seen where they don't even get the idea right. They get a really bad half-ass idea, and then they still continue to execute it badly. I will say
Yeah.
there's, at least for me, there's some things that I can say positive about this film. So even if it's not as many as I'd like to say. You can find it on Hulu after that review, and you can find it on physical media, of course, um, if anyone's interested. So, with that, we've done our short film, or our feature film, excuse me, but we wanted to save the real treat, because I think this is something I think we'll both agree will totally redeem that movie. And we're going to talk about the 1962 film by writer director Chris Marker. This is a short film called La Jetée. And I know you're familiar with Mr. Marker's work. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you take the lead on this, if you want to talk about if you're interested, of course, and let you talk about our writer director and a little bit about the film,
Um,
if you want to. And if not, I have notes, so I can gladly.
well, I love Chris Marker. Like,
Yeah.
if I were to sit down and make a list of all time great, my favorite filmmakers, Chris Marker is in the top 5, no question.
Nice. Wow.
All of his work, and he did a lot of short subjects. And I'm not exactly sure what the breakdown is off the top of my head.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, and it's well worth looking up. And you don't see it so much here in the States, which I think is a shame. Criterion has released a 2-film Sans Soleil, which is a travel log, and Le Jetée together disc, which is well worth
Yeah.
buying. It should run out. You should buy it right now. It is excellent. But this is one of my all-time favorite films. It's a short film. And the first time I saw it, I remember the first time I saw it was when DVD was new. There was this video magazine called Shorts. And I think it was the second issue, called Search and Destroy. And on it is Le Jetée, Mr. Resistor Part 2, and those are adorable little short films if you want something fun. And Henry Rollins' Easter Sunday, New York City, which is also fantastic.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
And not knowing what the fuck I was getting into, teenage me put because I mean, this was like, well, maybe it was like 2000. So I was like 19, 20. Put the disc in the system, press play, and just my mind was blown. I had never seen anything like it. This is the exact opposite of Aporia, where Aporia didn't think anything out, but they had the idea. This had the idea, and then it sat down and they thought it all out. Every step, every bit. It has some of the most beautiful images I have ever seen on film. Just thinking about it. I'm going to show you my book.
Yes, please.
I have this book.
I'm jealous. We've emailed back and forth, and you told me about this beautiful book that they made.
And this is Le Jetée by MIT Press.
Mm-hmm.
And it is every still and every line of dialogue from the film. All of them. Just
Awesome.
right here in my hand. And I can just pick this up, and it is the thing is, and this is the thing with Marker's work, especially the Jetée, is that the book is also an experience. It is so connected to how I view memory and connection.
Mm.
Forever, one of the most beautiful moments in film will be okay. So JETEE, the storyline. The world is fucked. They send a man back in time with drugs.
Gotta have drugs.
It's got to have drugs. It's 62. Of course, you're on drugs. And his whole life, he's dreamed of a jetty, seeing a jetty and a woman crying. And while in the past, he sees the woman, and they connect, and that's what it's about. And it is gorgeous. It is brilliant. It was remade as 12 Monkeys, which is not as gorgeous and brilliant, but it's a good one anyway. There are just shots in this that just, especially the romance. This is like the best film romance ever, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Because we watch these two characters connect from a remove that realizes it's removed. But just the expressions, just hearing the bits and pieces that overlap, it's truly moving to me. There's a bit that, again, this is all told in stills except for 14 seconds, 20 seconds, which for my money is the best 20 seconds ever filmed. We could argue meaning all day, but
yeah,
that one bit, and I don't want to spoil it because I want people to see it. And I want them to see it for the first time. But that bit, it's like I dream about that. Yeah. Nobody can, like, that moment is so good. It is what makes film special.
Mm-hmm.
It connects the viewer to the subject and the image all at once, and I love it. I love the short. I could just prattle all day, and it'll just make less and less sense as I go on.
That's a good thing.
When you said we were doing this also, I was so happy. Like, I got giddy.
Well, honestly, I had never seen it. I don't even know how I stumbled upon it. Obviously, I'd seen 12 Monkeys once a million years ago. I had a good time, and that I didn't know anything about this until I saw it, and I was like, well, I wanted to do something time travel oriented. So last November, I did um, three films. Well, one was 2 were TV shows, and one was a film, all involving time travel and the assassination of JFK. One was a Quantum Leap 2-episode thing where he leaps in Lee Harvey Oswald. The other was a cable movie called Running Against Time that has the guy from Airplane. I had to get a bootleg possibly for that. And then the other was the pilot episode to the Stephen King miniseries 11/22/63, which is also deals with going back. So because I did that last year, I wanted to do something time travel oriented this November. I couldn't get into November, but I was like, what can I do for December? Because this month I'm mostly going to be doing Christmas stuff. But I said, I got to squeeze something time travel oriented. And I was trying to come up with something that was different, something that might be interesting, something that I had never seen that would be worthy of a conversation. And I stumbled upon this, and I was like, wow, that just looks so fascinating. So I figured that would be a good choice. But I also didn't want to just do it just by itself, which is why I paired it with Aporia, for better or worse.
Well, I mean, I don't want to pick it apart. I want to encourage people to see it.
Yeah.
But, like, and again, I have the book, so I'm able to just look at the stills. Everything in this is done for a purpose, and it's very much about how the past isn't as simple or as romantic as we think of it, and that's the heart of it. And again, I love it. And I didn't mean to steamroll you there; it just popped into my head because as I'm thinking about it, I can always think of more things to say about this one.
No, dude, listen. The one thing I love about doing this is I love when people just engage and they're really passionate about something, because there's nothing more exciting than having a conversation when you're talking to someone that genuinely absolutely loves or adores what we're talking about. It's so much more painful for me when you're talking about something that you're on or you're middle of the road on. And sometimes when you do like a YouTube channel or a podcast, it just comes with the territory. But I try on my show, and some people have criticized this, I won't mention names. I try on my show to mainly focus on the stuff that I know I've got more positive than negative. Now, sometimes that doesn't always work out, especially if it's something I haven't seen before. But I generally try to do that just because if I'm talking about, because a lot of times I do solo runs where I don't have guests. So if I'm spending an hour and a half or 2 hours talking about something, I'd rather pick something that like, hey, I absolutely adore this fucking thing, or I for the most part like it, but there's this one thing that I'm not crazy about. Instead of talking about something that I absolutely hate. That's just me. I will talk about something that I absolutely hate, but if I'm doing it by myself, I refuse to put myself through that.
Well,
And perhaps the actually can be entertaining.
Over on Raiders of the Podcast, where you can find us wherever you get your podcasts, including here on YouTube.
Yeah. Awesome.
I often have to suffer.
He's like, you must deal with the suffering.
Dave's suffering is a recurring thing. Almost 7 years. This is one of my all-time favorite movies. I can't talk about it because we talk about features.
Yeah.
We don't do shorts. We occasionally do TV, which is usually also to suffer. But one thing I love about this is how it engages a metatextual conversation about still and cinematography, which I sort of mentioned talking about my all-time favorite moment in any film. Like it is up there with the old man on the swing in Ikaru. There's certain images that are forever burned into your brain, and this one burned an image into my brain.
Well, I mean, it's just a beautiful film. I mean, I'll just touch. I won't be quite as eloquent as you are. It took me a couple of viewings, I will say, to actually register everything. I mean, I got like a general idea, but there's a lot of stuff going on in this movie, and I feel like there's a lot of deeper meaning too. But I saw it the first time, I was like, wow, this is good. Saw it the second time, I'm like, wow, this is really good. But like I started to pick up on things that I didn't notice the first time, and it is such a beautiful film from the way it's shot, the narration. The fact that they chose to use still pictures except for that one scene for like 14 seconds. And it tells such a great story in 28 minutes. And they leave you with this ending that's just blows you away. That wraps around, and not to give anything away, this is one of those ones where I won't talk it to death, like Aporia, where I talked it to death. I won't talk this to death because I don't want to give it away. But they wrap around the beginning to the end, and they just put this nice little bow tie on it, and they give us this beautiful movie. And like yourself, I mean, it's absolutely amazing. I definitely am putting that book on my Christmas list for Santa, and eventually I'm going to try to pick up the Blu-ray with the Sansol and this. And in the meantime, I'm going to try to look on the Criterion channel because I know they have a bunch of Chris Marker stuff on there at the moment. They do, so I'm definitely going to be checking out more of his stuff. I mean, really impressed. What's interesting about him is because I did write some stuff, some of the background stuff. Apparently, he made 24 films in his 6-decade career. And what's also interesting, apparently he never gave an interview. He never granted an interview according to this. He was involved in the French Resistance during World War II. So that's kind of interesting, just random trivia here. And there was one film, and I thought I wrote it down, but there was apparently he actually helped out a filmmaker, and I don't know why, I thought I wrote it down, that was struggling to get funding, and he actually just sent him film. And I don't know why. I thought for sure I wrote that down. But yeah, there was a guy that was making a film, and he just like, here you go. Sent him a bunch of film stock. So, I mean, not only is he a talented filmmaker, but apparently he's also a nice guy. So what more can you not like about a guy like that, Thumbs up as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, no, this is a definitely a strong recommendation from me, as like yourself. So I guess before we wrap up and stuff, let me just ask you, like off the top of your head, if you had to think, what are like maybe your top 3 or 4 time travel movies?
Oh, okay.
Or you don't have to be spot on. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but
no. That's a good question. Okay.
Time travel here.
Okay. I'm an '80s, '90s kid, so Back to the Future has to be on it.
Of course.
I say 2, but we'll just go with the whole trilogy as 1.
Yeah. You're doing a little cheat there. I like it.
I am doing a cheat. I'm going to take that.
That's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah. And again, this isn't in order. Just
just in general, yeah.
Because it's Le Jetee. That's the switch those. Back to the Future, Le Jetee, and the third one's tough.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm sitting here and a movie pops in my head and it's like, well, it's obviously Primer, but it's like, is it? Because Time Crimes is pretty damn good. It's like, but Terminator's pretty damn good. And I go, yeah, but so let's just field there because there's a lot I want to say.
Well, the problem is there's so many different subgenres. It's just like, like horror, you got regular horror, you got body horror, you got horror comedy, and
Mhm.
the same thing with time travel. You have the time travel comedies, you have the serious stuff, you have
I'm
the.
like the Visitors on Raiders. We did the American remake, which is terrible, but the French The
Yeah,
Visitors is hilarious.
yeah, the original, yeah.
The Star Trek with the whales, number 4.
Yeah,
Time travel movie. It's a blast. It's
yeah.
just it's like, God, can I narrow it down? No. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Le Jetée and to cheat and just field everything else.
Well, that's a good answer. I couldn't honestly, because I couldn't put them in any specific order. I mean, listen, the goofy kid in me is going to go for, not in any order again, Bill and Ted's the original.
Well,
That's the
yeah, I
goofy
mean, that's
kid in
just
me.
it. Like,
I'm still the goofy kid though, so like I'm just the 50-year-old version of the goofy kid, you know. So then there's that. Obviously, Back to the Future, I fell in love with, like every kid in America, and I'm still in love with that freaking movie. That's another one everyone should own. And if you have a 4K player, that thing is constantly on sale. So pick it up. It's like fucking every time I see it, it's going down on sale. Like it was like 50, then it went down to 30. I think it might be. I think Black Friday they had it for like $20, the whole trilogy. But anyway, so there's that one. I dig time crimes a lot. Obviously, I think that's awesome. You know, the one we were just talking about that I can't remember with the oh shit, the fucking comedy with the sarcastic girl.
yeah, safety not guaranteed.
Yes, and I bet it's how horrible is I called her the sarcastic girl because I can't think of her
That's
fucking
her,
name.
dude. That's her thing,
But we all
man.
know who she is. But anyway, yeah, safety not guaranteed is great. There's so much good stuff out there. Yeah, so well, this has been awesome. I thank you again, dude, for taking your time to come on here.
Oh,
And
thank you for letting me on. Look
this
up some more Chris Marker. Uh, look up for his documentary. It's the one he made right after Le Jetée. It's called
okay.
Le Jolie Mai. It's 55 hours. Well, he cut it down, but he interviewed the
Uh-huh.
people of Paris after the Algerian War. It is fantastic.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Very cool. Hey, before I forget, someone I think I don't know. I should have looked this up. I think I read somewhere that someone tried to redo Legity many years later using maybe AI or virtual reality.
yeah,
I'm guessing it's horrible.
there's been some attempts. I have not.
Yeah. I thought I saw that too before I end things here.
Yeah, as I said, I love
Yeah.
Le Jetée, so
Yeah.
I've heard of that. I
But you
just
don't want to
I
leave a
like
bad taste in your mouth.
I like myself too much to actually experience that.
You probably
Let's leave
do.
it that way.
You're better off. It's like the remake that that might be horrible, so you're better off just like, we'll just leave it in the corner over here. Let's not touch this.
Well, it's like I love Casablanca. I'm not going to
Yeah.
look up the 1980s TV version because
Oh
I
shit! I didn't know there was one. Fuck.
there is, and it's got a cast where it's like, oh, I'm gonna no, I won't look that up because like it's tempting given the folks involved, but no, I know it's gonna hurt. I know it's
Dude.
gonna hurt, so I'm not
So
gonna do
that's
it.
for me. Like, and I'm breaking my cardinal rule. So when I started this thing, I told myself I would never cover my favorite novel of all time is the unabridged version of the Count of Monte Cristo, and I
Oh, that's
told myself
reasonable.
I would never cover a mini series of it. I've never covered the movies. If you go on IMDb, there's a ridiculously long list of miniseries, TV movies, theatrical releases. This year alone, there's the one that came out of France, which I just got in the mail. I haven't seen
It's
it.
supposed to be really good. I haven't seen it either.
And there's also another one with the actor Sam Claffoy and Jeremy Irons, the miniseries that just released over in Italy. Eventually, it'll work its way over to America.
Ooh,
But yeah,
I
so
didn't
that
know about that one.
just in 2024. But anyway, long drawn out point, as I told myself, I would never fucking touch one of these things because the book is sacred to me. And it's one of those cases you're not supposed to be biased when you do this kind of stuff. But the reality is there are certain things that you love and you are biased. And the book is a 1,300 page book. So you're going to start cutting things. And, like I know a lot of people that like the Jim Caviezel one. There's nothing wrong with the Jim Caviezel. But okay, when I say the but, if you've never read the book. Now, if you've read the book,
Well,
you're like, fuck you, Jim Caviezel.
I'm
Fuck
like
you.
that whenever
I
he
love
shows
Guy
up in
Pearce.
anything. So
What's that?
I'm like that when he shows up in anything. Him being there is a mark against it.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. But I'm breaking my cardinal rule. Hopefully, it won't bite me in the ass because I'm gonna cover the last episode for December. I'm gonna cover the 2024 version
Ooh.
because I have a region-free player. So because of
Yeah.
that, I was able to get a hold of through, I think, on eBay, someone was selling a Region B Blu-ray of it. It's not getting an American release in theaters until January 3rd. God knows when it's going to hit Blu-ray in America.
Yeah.
But that's the advantages of having a region-free player. Every once in a while, you get lucky and you can kind of get something a little early. But anyway, that was my example of being, what you're talking about with your movies, being biased. That's one of those ones for the longest time. I was like, dude, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Hopefully this doesn't bite me in the ass. I'm hoping it won't. It looks good.
It's supposed to be excellent. I've heard
Yeah,
nothing but praise.
yeah,
So
yeah. Fingers crossed. But on that note, I will thank you again, sir, for coming on. This has been awesome. Before
thank
I
you.
give out my
Anytime.
shout outs, let me ask what's going on at Raiders this week or even next week? You want to give a quick
Next.
shout out?
Well, this week, the episode that
And
just
then,
went up today as we're recording, we covered Spy Family Code White, which is the 2023 anime film, and Made in Britain, the 1982 TV movie with Tim Roth. This is
okay.
the breadth that we cover. We don't do topical, but we will do any movie from the last 200 years of film that just kind of falls into our lap. Next week, we're doing Run Bitch Run, so it's a Tyler week.
I never would have guessed.
No, and we're ending our year doing our. Well, we've done it a couple times. We haven't done it every year. Sometimes we're nice to each
Yeah.
other, but generally we end with what we call either season's beatings or Secret Satan, where we divide up and we get matched around. And friend of the podcast Anna will give us a person to pick a movie for, and we try to hurt each other. So this year is shaping up to be the worst.
Well, that in itself is going to be awesome. I can't wait to hear the torture. Hopefully you guys can inflict a little as well as receive. It's part of the spirit of the holiday. You don't take too much pain. You can dish it out a little too.
I think I picked well. I think my target will cry. So fingers crossed.
Well, that sounds like a fun game. See, this is why I need to have a regular co-host so I can do this kind of stuff. I only torture myself. Then that's no fun after a while. Well, that's awesome. We'll definitely check out the Raiders of the podcast. These guys are awesome. They put out a great show. I'm going to put out some shout outs to buddies Troy and Brad over at Not a Bomb. These guys always manage to find something interesting that was either a critical bomb or it was reviewed badly. And this week they're doing an animated movie called Mars Express. It's like apparently science fiction noir, neo noir. I hear it's really, really good. They raved on and on about that film. So that's what they're covering this week. I know our buddies Jose and Alex over at Watch Skip Plus. They cover the stuff that's out every week. And this week they just dropped the new film Wicked. So that should be something fun to check out. So definitely check out Jose and Alex, Watch Skip Plus. Of course, I got to give a shout out to Sam and Will over at the Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema. Those are the guys that inspired, I think, a lot of us to go and do this. They certainly, for me, they did. And Sam and Will, they also pick such a wide breadth of different films every week. They're always impressing me because they're picking up these things, these gems that I've never seen or heard of before, and they do such a great job. So I'm going to give a shout out to Sam and Will. And then finally, we got Caliber 9 from Outer Space. These guys started this year. This is Rob and Joe, and they're coming over from the UK. And they have kind of like a drive-in a way of doing it. They have their A movie and their B movie. And it kind of reminds me a tiny bit of you guys in the sense they have like the two movies, but they do like an A movie and a B movie. And again, they pick just a wide variety of different films. They're super nice guys. They had me on in August, and I was talking about the Astron 6 Father's Day film. And then we went back to the 80s, and we talked about the Charles Kaufman Mother's Day film. So it was a fun time. It was a fun time to talk about.
That's a good matchup, man.
Yeah, absolutely. They do a lot of really good matchups. So those guys are really awesome. So definitely check out those podcasts. Next week, I'm not 100% sure. I have two films I'm deciding on. I'm not sure which one I'm going to do first. I'm going to be talking about Frank Capra's 1961 film A Pocket Full of Miracles, either next week or the week after. That's his last film. And it's also a film that takes place in Christmas that doesn't get a lot of love. And then also there's a Peter Cushing film called Cash on Demand that also takes place at Christmas. So within the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be talking about both those films. I just haven't figured out which film I'm going to talk about next week yet. I haven't figured out the schedule yet. And then I'm going to end it at the end of December with The Count of Monte Cristo 2024 that I was just raving on about. So that's my lineup. So thank everyone for listening. Thank you again, Dave, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Be sure to check out Raiders of the Podcast. These guys will have you very entertained as they continue to tell very great reviews and bust each other's balls the entire time doing it. So it's highly worth your time, people. And I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. If you like the channel, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment. And if you're really feeling generous, I do have a TeePublic site. My fiance is a really talented artist. She designed some t-shirts. I got this hat right here that has now for something a little bit different, my little mascots. They got hoodies and stickers and all sorts of cool stuff. So check that out. And thank everyone for listening. I would look forward to seeing everybody next week. Have a wonderful weekend. Oh, 1 sec. And